Hi folks, hope you're well. So, court case is over. Yes. It was a bizarre thing. Oh, just to say, yes, I was found guilty on both counts of failure to stop and report and driving without due care. There was a number of things that was weird. The person, the individual who claims that my car hit him, I had to ask a question to him after the prosecution stopped. They showed a photo which showed a bruise in the middle of his back. The prosecution was claiming that this came from connecting, or my mirror, side mirror, connecting with him. And I made the point which completely knackered that, and so therefore he has to change his story. I said, excuse me, the mirror is only so big. If the mirror hit you, then it would have been the side of your back that was hit. So the right side. It would not have been the middle. Because the mirror is only a certain size. I said, so it couldn't have been the mirror that damaged your back. He said, well, I had bruises on my leg as well, so it's possible. But earlier on, you said you felt a sharp pain in your back. He said in his testimony, he felt a sharp pain in his back like he was run over by a steel metal truck. I even asked him, have you ever been run over by a steel metal truck? He said, no. I said, well, how do you know how that feels? I said, I imagine that would feel quite a lot worse because it's a blinking truck. But no, his testimony was weak, to say the least. Very. Especially claiming that an injury that happened to his back, because he then said, oh, well, that injury may have happened as you know, other parts of the car hit me. I said, well, what you mean is you hit other parts of the car? And he looked at me and I said, well, your testimony suggests that you fell against the car. If you fell against the car, it means that your body hit the car rather than the car actually hit your body, because you fell against the side of the car. And more technically, that's true. But again, would that have caused that type of injury to his lower back? No. Could it have been caused when he fell on the floor? No, because it says that he fell on his left side. So as he fell on the floor, it was the left side of his body that hit the ground, not the middle of his back. So therefore, no. Oh, I did a terrible bloody job. A terrible bloody job. There were so many things that I should have asked, that I prepared to ask before I should ask, and yet didn't ask. The police officer that attended, I thought it would be the sergeant. It wasn't. It was the constable, the lower level. It was a woman, and she was the one that I offered to look inside the car. She said she doesn't remember that happening. She said, well, we didn't need to look inside the car anyway. I said, and you also said that the brother-in-law said that he saw me, therefore I should have seen them. She said, well, I don't remember saying that either, because they were facing in the other direction. So why? Then why did you lie to me on the day? She was trying to get me to say on the day that I saw them, which I did not. Now again, technically, so therefore, okay, the prosecution, when I then said what happened, the prosecution said to me, okay, so you do admit that you failed to report. I said, yeah. I said, but at that point in time, I had nothing to report. I didn't see anything before, during, or after. I said, look, I said, you're doing me with driving without due care because I couldn't see, and yet I continued driving. Now you're telling me I should have reported something I couldn't blink and see. Right? You're doing me for both. How can you do me for both if you're saying driving without due care is because I couldn't see and yet I didn't put my foot on the brake? Which, yeah, I should have done, but I didn't. Because at that time, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking about the blinking water dripping in my eyes. Panicked. Well, there you go. Okay. Well, again, when the victim, because he acts like a victim, when he said that he has, because they made a big point about me not getting out of the car. So I said to him, okay, when we get out of the car, would that have stopped your injuries? He said, no. I said, well, would that have made any difference? He said, well, actually, I have mental health issues because the psychiatrist said because I don't know why it happened. Really? Bullshit. I call bullshit to that, but I said to him, my response in court wasn't bullshit. My response in court was, well, look, the reality is, I said, did the police tell you what I said as to why it happened? He said, no. I said, well, if they had, you would have known. Therefore, you wouldn't have had this mental health issue. So maybe look to them for that. Of course, the court didn't like any of that because you're supposed to keep it to just asking questions, and I didn't. Well, I didn't because of the case. For me, I'm just talking as I talk. Yeah, I'm not trained as a lawyer, so therefore, no, I'm not going to do that. I just talk as I talk. And so therefore, yeah, I don't like it, but in the end, yeah. I'm going to have to go back to completely understand what the situation is, because I'm pretty sure that for one of them, I think for the driving without due care, I got 7 points, and I think it's £170 fine. Then for the other one, I got £100 or £120 fine. Because you get £100 and you get £20 for victim support or whatever fund, which I think is crap because, well, if the victim is, in this case, is suing the insurance company for £30,000, I'm sure that 20 quid ain't going to really go very far, is it? Really, for that? So yeah, but they had that on anyway. So yeah. So I don't know. As I say, it is what it is. Do I understand why it had to happen? No, I don't yet. I'm still no clearer. I understand. I said there's a lot of things that I should have asked and maybe should have said. I did get 1 point. One of the witnesses, Scott Anderson, I think his name was. And again, the court didn't like this. Because, yeah, I basically said, okay. The person said they saw my car coming along the road. They saw my car go onto the curb. They saw my mirror, apparently they saw my mirror hit the person. Then they saw my car coming off the curb. Then they saw my car stop. After 20 seconds, they saw my car going again, right? I said, right. I said, you're driving on the other side of the road? He went, yes. So can you see the parked cars there? He went, yes. I said, do you know that people come out the shops and try and cross the road by going between the parked cars and just walking out? He went, well, yeah. I said, but you were looking at the other side of the road. I said, shouldn't you be done with driving without due care? I'm in court, and one of the witnesses is someone who was driving and taking no bloody notice of the side he was on, and he could have run over someone. If a person was trying to cross the road and not really paying attention as they do, they pay attention to their phones, they could have just stepped out. If they had, he would have been looking over the other side of the bloody road. He would have noticed someone stepping out. And it's like, well, for me, come on. How on earth? But, okay. No, they didn't like that either because, you know, I'm making a statement rather than asking a question. So, yeah, I am, because, again, why is the court not asking that bloody question? What were you doing driving looking over there? You're supposed to be focusing on your side and on the left upon people walking out between bloody cars. If you'd have been doing that in a, what's it called, driving test, you'd have failed. Yeah. If you'd been not paying attention to the cars on the left-hand side and possibility of people walking through there, you would have failed. Therefore, the person who was driving on the other side wouldn't have been driving because he would have failed his driving test. No, because my point to him is, look, I don't think you saw everything you say you saw. I think you saw the people laying on the road. You may have seen my car stop. Yes. You saw the person down on the other side of the road with his brother-in-law kneeling down beside him. You stopped. You heard his brother-in-law say, "Oh, this and that, this, that, this, that, this, that." You put two and two together and think that that's what you saw. And believe that you saw it all. But I don't think you did. So, as I say, there's that. There's that. And, yeah. I said to the brother-in-law something which the brother-in-law should have noted, but didn't. I said, okay. I said, you know that road? Do you walk it or drive it? He said, yeah. I said, so you know that on cars coming down the road, coming from the area of, so coming from Lossiemouth down to Elgin, on that side of the road, they're often driving very, very close to the curb. Yeah, basically within an inch of the curb. He said, no, I've never noticed it. Excuse me, I see it all the time. How the bloody hell have you never noticed that? I notice that all the time. You've never seen that? You have cars parked on the other side of the road. So the cars that are going past them on the other side of the road always go more or less on the white line in the middle or slightly over it. Which means the cars coming down have to go further across to the curb. And that happens all the blinking time. Now, maybe now it changed a bit because now they've changed that road. They've had all the roadworks there, so they've made that bit slightly wider. So maybe that won't happen. But you've still got cars parked there, so therefore, yes. In certain parts of the road, that is going to happen. Now, and I worked out actually, I was the third car in line at the traffic lights. So I've said before, if I was a few cars down, then again, if I was a few cars further down, it's quite likely that the water would have been dripping on my eyes when the road was straight, in which case I wouldn't have gone on the curb because my wheel would have been turned straight by that point in time. And so, yeah, for the amount of time it took me to get the water out of my eyes, there would have been no incident. So like the person, Scott Anderson, who was driving without due care, because nothing happened, the court doesn't care less about him driving without due care. They wouldn't have cared at all. If I'd have been driving on that morning with water coming in my eyes, therefore for a while, for a second or two I couldn't see, they wouldn't have cared. As long as nothing happened. But because at that exact point, when the water started getting my eyes, I turned the wheel left because the road turns left. And I'd already gone past the left bit. And so therefore my car went up onto the curb because my wheel was turned left. So if I was further back, then the water would be out of my eyes before the road even turned left. One thing I will say though is that if I'd have pleaded guilty day one, if I'd have gone in and just said guilty straight away, and they'd just be sentencing me, I wouldn't have got a lesser sentence. It's quite likely I would have got more. I would have got a bigger fine. Points wise, I might not have got worse. It might have been about the same. I don't think it would have been less. No. So there you go. If someone says to you, if you plead guilty, it'll be easier for you, not necessarily. Not at all. So you take care. God bless. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.